Describe your educational experiences.
In terms of my education, my parents were told that I would be better off going to an institute for the deaf and learning sign language, and that I would never read or write above second grade or third grade level. At the time of the hearing loss, I was only about 2.5, and I was already speaking. So because of that, my parents decided the best thing for me was to continue with the spoken language and learn how to use my residual hearing. I was fitted with hearing aids and put into a special education class, and the teacher told my parents I was too advanced for that class and moved me on to kindergarten early. I never really had any special accommodations throughout school other than sitting in front of the class and maybe a little extra time doing the tests. In elementary school, I went to a regular hearing school, and I was mainstream, pretty much the only mainstream deaf student in the whole school for the longest time. And when I went into junior high, same thing, with a different experience, because in junior high you have to go to different classes, and when you have different teachers, and different reaction to your hearing loss is really difficult. And I think, looking back, I really did not have any negative experiences other than the typical student picking on me because my voice was different, or they just didn't like me. And when I would get upset about that, I was always told that those kids do not know anything about hearing loss, and if they did, they probably would not treat me that way. So I grew up thinking positively about my hearing loss, and in high school, when I went from public school to a private school, it was a little bit better because the classes were smaller. Most of my classes had maybe 10 to 15 to 20 people in the class, so there was more one-on-one attention. I do recall one time in high school where I had a math teacher who told my mother I was using my hearing loss as an excuse not to get my work done. But we were trying to tell her that I could not catch anything in class because her back was to the class when she would talk about math problems. So that math class was the most difficult for me. In terms of being involved in sports and things like that, I never really had a problem following along because I was always in sports, where you could really pretty much follow other people and not have to worry about sun calls and things like that, like volleyball or even tennis and things like that, because it's smaller and more, I guess, easier to follow. When I graduated from high school, we had 48 people in my class, and I went from that to a 40,000 students university like Texas A&M. When I first started, they only gave me note takers because at that time I did not know sign language. And for a good 4 years I struggled with just note takers, and my grades were not that good. And a lot of it had to do with the fact I was in a 200 student class, sitting up front with teachers with different accents, and I really could not follow the notes that well. I had to study until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then one semester Texas A&M wanted to kick me out due to my grades. And in an act of desperation, I talked to different people. By that time I was involved with HBL, and I met several people who had hearing losses that spoke well just like I did. And one person in particular recommended that I use oral interpreters, and I was the kind of person that did not like to attract attention to myself, so I said I would try it. Well, my first semester I made a 3.75, and then the next semester a 4.0. So you could really tell that I went from the low 2.0 to 4.0 so quickly. And that was because the oral interpreters helped me catch what I was saying, said in class, and I was able to actually follow along, answer questions, and actually feel like I knew something. I felt smart. After I finished college, I moved to San Antonio with the intent of going to graduate school. But after 6 years of college, you get a little burnt out. So I took a sabbatical, started working for a deaf program where I learned sign language. And then I went back to school, worked on my master's. I've used oral interpreters at that time. And my years at graduate school were the best years of my life because for once I had, I guess, respect. I was able to follow along with what was being said in class and learn a lot more. I graduated with a very high GPA and got my master's in education, stayed in San Antonio where I continued to work. So overall, I think my education experiences were fairly typical of mainstream deaf student, with the exception that maybe nowadays more students have a lot available to them that I didn't have back then.